They called it the Pact, like something out of a movie. It was supposed to be a weekend of survival and self-reliance, one last act of rebellion before adulthood settled its weight across their backs. No phones, no GPS, no telling parents. Just 3 16-year-old boys stepping into the unknown like warriors walking into myth. Luca had the idea. He always did. Wiry and sharp-tongued, the kind of kid who'd light a fire just to see what it would burn. Jack was the quiet one, strong and broad-shouldered, with a perpetual look of concern as though he were always calculating consequences. Then there was Milo, the tag-along, smart, sarcastic, always trying to prove he wasn't afraid. They met just after dawn on a Saturday in mid-September. Backpacks packed, faces pale with adrenaline. The woods behind the old train yard stretched for miles, a blur of dense pine, slick moss, forgotten trails, and whispered legends. Beyond the tree line, the world fell away. 3 days, Luca had said the night before, tossing a rock across Jack's porch. We come back different. Men. Milo had laughed, but something in him wanted it too, to do something reckless and raw, to test themselves. By the time the first shafts of sunlight pierced the canopy, they were miles deep and already drenched in sweat. Luca led, machete in hand, slashing through vines and low-hanging branches like he was born to it. Jack checked the compass every hour. Milo sketched landmarks in a notebook, a bent birch, a moss-covered rock shaped like a skull. They found a creek around noon, stripped off their shirts, splashed water on their faces, and drank greedily. "I told you this place is magic," Luca grinned, arms outstretched. "We could live out here." Jack gave him a side eye. "If we don't die first." That night they camped near a small glade, ringed with thick evergreens that swallowed sound. Luca insisted they build a fire without matches, flint and steel. After several frustrating tries, they managed it. The flames cast flickering shadows on their faces, wild and young. They talked about girls, about the future, about how small their hometown felt lately. The fire crackled and popped, sending sparks up like fireflies. Then, a sound. A distant, metallic clang. Faint but unmistakable. They froze. "Probably a deer," Milo offered, too quickly. "That was no deer," Jack said. He stood, listening. "You hear that?" "Nothing now. Just wind and leaves." Luca laughed it off. "You're both turning into babies already." Still, they kept the fire going longer than they'd planned. None of them said it, but none of them wanted to sleep. Back in town, by 10 p.m., the panic had begun. Mrs. Devlin was the first to notice. Milo hadn't come home. His bed was empty. His phone sat on the kitchen table, untouched. By midnight, 3 families were on the phone with police, trying not to sound hysterical. "They wouldn't just leave," Luca's mother said, pacing the kitchen. "He's never done anything like this." "They're teenagers," Officer Kerr said, scribbling on a pad. "It's not uncommon. We'll find them." By sunrise, flyers were printing. Search parties forming. But deep in the woods, the boys were unaware of the panic they'd left behind. They woke stiff and cold. The fire had burned low. Luca was the first to rise, rubbing his eyes. He wandered a few feet from camp to relieve himself, then stopped. His voice called out, sharp and uneven. "Jack! Milo! Guys!" They came running. Etched in the bark of a tree, freshly carved, were the words, "Leave now." No footprints. No signs of life. Just that warning, glaring at them like a threat carved in bone. Jack stared at it for a long time. "This isn't funny, Luca." "I didn't do it," Luca muttered, backing away. "I swear." Milo looked around at the still trees. The birds had stopped singing. A chill passed through the glade. The adventure was no longer exciting. It was turning into something else. Something they hadn't planned for. They left the glade within 10 minutes. Luca tried to act unfazed, but his usual swagger was gone. Jack took the lead now, compass tight in hand, brow furrowed with a storm of worry. Milo stayed at the rear, glancing over his shoulder every few steps. The warning on the tree echoed in his mind like a mantra. "Leave now. Leave now. Leave now." They didn't speak much. Not until midday, when the trail disappeared. "I swear this was the path," Jack said, spinning in place, the compass needle jittering. "We went northwest yesterday." Luca shook his head. "We didn't turn that hard west." Milo pulled out his notebook, flipping pages. The sketch of the skull-shaped rock stared back at him. "We passed this 2 hours ago," he said slowly. "We're going in circles." No one argued. A breeze rolled through, carrying with it a strange silence. Not the peaceful kind, but an absence. No birds. No rustling. Not even the buzz of insects. Just trees pressing in too close, like the forest itself was listening. Jack clenched his jaw. "We need to climb. Get a vantage point." By late afternoon, they were scrambling up a steep ridge, grabbing roots and clawing at moss-slick rock. At the top, they hoped for a glimpse of the valley, maybe even the distant highway. Instead, they found something else. A shack. It leaned at an unnatural angle, half swallowed by the forest. The roof was caved in, door hanging loose on rusted hinges. No path led to it. No trail markers, no signs of human activity. Just this broken thing, hiding like a secret. Luca stepped toward it. "Bet there's a map in there." "Or a raccoon den," Milo muttered. They went in. Inside, the air was damp and sour. Moldering wallpaper peeled like shedding skin. A toppled chair. A wood stove rusted shut. On the far wall, a corkboard yellowed and warped, with pins still embedded in empty space. And on the floor, a backpack. Blue. Modern. Too clean. Jack crouched and picked it up. Inside were snack wrappers, a cracked phone, and an ID card. Kevin Marsden, age 17. The picture was faded, but the name was clear. Milo's face drained. "That kid went missing 2 years ago. Remember?" Everyone thought he ran away. Jack stood slowly. "Then why is his pack here?" Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. All three jumped. Luca lunged forward and yanked it open. Nothing there. Just wind. They bolted. No one spoke until they were halfway down the ridge. Luca's voice was hoarse. "We should have never come out here." Milo stopped suddenly. "What's that?" A thin sound drifted up from the trees, high, hollow, like metal striking metal. The same sound they'd heard that first night. A steady clang. Then silence. Then another clang. Jack's eyes locked with Milo's. "We move. Now." Back in town, the search had grown desperate. Helicopters combed the forests. Search dogs paced at the edges. Volunteers scoured logging trails and streambeds. One woman swore she saw 3 shapes moving through the woods the night before, but the lead went nowhere. The boys' parents were frayed and sleepless, flipping between hope and panic. News stations began covering the disappearance. 3 teens vanish in forest adventure, the headlines read. Words like runaways, misadventure, and rescue echoed across kitchens and police radios. But the forest had gone quiet. That night, the boys didn't light a fire. They found a shallow cave and curled up in their sleeping bags, the dark pressing close. Every sound made them flinch: branches creaking, the distant hoot of an owl, something crunching in the underbrush that never stepped into view. Milo whispered, "Do you think someone's out here? Like, following us?" Luca didn't answer. Jack whispered, "We'll make it back. Tomorrow." But Milo didn't sleep. Not really. He stared up at the cave ceiling and listened for the clang that came every hour. Always distant. Never closer. Like a signal. Or a warning. Just before dawn, Milo sat up suddenly. Something was scrawled on the cave wall. It hadn't been there the night before. The same jagged letters. "You shouldn't be here." By morning, the boys were pale and silent. No one asked who wrote the warning on the cave wall. No one admitted they'd stayed awake, clutching their knives, barely breathing. Something had shifted in the woods. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt occupied. They moved faster now, downhill and due south. Jack tossed the compass after watching the needle spin in lazy circles for over an hour. Milo's notebook hung from his hand like dead weight. Every landmark they passed felt wrong, familiar but not quite right, like replicas sculpted by memory. At noon, they reached a river. It was the only landmark they were sure hadn't been there before. Fast, wide, and loud. The kind of river that roared when it passed over rocks and vanished around a bend like it had no beginning or end. "We're too far east," Jack said, trying to hide the panic in his voice. "There's no river this big on the topo maps." Luca sat down hard on a rock, eyes unfocused. "We're not just lost," he said quietly. "This place, it's not right. It's messing with us." "Don't say that," Milo snapped. "Don't go there." Luca didn't respond. They followed the river downstream, hoping for signs of civilization. A bridge, a dock, power lines, anything. But the farther they went, the darker the woods seemed to grow, as if the sun struggled to find its way in. Then came the smell. It hit all three at once. Coppery, wet, and foul. Up ahead, tangled in river reeds and half submerged, was a deer carcass. But its antlers were missing, cleanly severed, and carved into its flank were the same jagged letters as before. "Turn back." Luca turned and threw up. Milo's voice shook. "Whoever's out here, they're watching us." "We keep moving," Jack said. "Fast." They pushed on, legs trembling, blisters splitting open. By late afternoon, the woods thinned just enough to glimpse something in the distance. A rusted fire tower rising above the trees, crooked but intact. Hope lit their eyes. Jack broke into a run. The base of the tower was choked in weeds. The ladder groaned as they climbed. One by one they ascended, 60 feet up to the platform. The wind hit their faces hard, cool and sharp. They saw no roads, no cabins, just forest stretching forever in all directions. But on the platform's floor sat a small weatherproof box, a radio transmitter. Dead, but reparable. Jack knelt beside it like a surgeon at an operating table. "If I reroute power through the backup battery, we might get a ping out," he said. "Do it," Milo urged. "Anything." As Jack worked, Lucas circled the platform, scanning the horizon. Then he stopped cold. In a clearing far below, on the forest floor, 3 figures stood. Not moving, not waving, just standing, side by side. "Guys," he whispered. Milo stepped up beside him. What the hell? The figures vanished. Not walked away. Not ran. 1 second they were there. The next gone. Luca stumbled back. That's it. I'm done. This is something else. This isn't just a hike gone wrong. Milo turned toward Jack. Please tell me that thing's working. Jack nodded. I'm getting a signal. Weak, but it's bouncing off something. Might be enough. He keyed the mic and spoke. This is Jack Norton, 16, lost in woods northeast of Pendale. 3 of us. Need evac. Coordinates unknown. Please respond. He repeated it twice, then slumped beside the unit. Minutes passed. Then, static. A pup. A voice. Jack. Say again, Jack Norton. They screamed in relief. Jack grabbed the mic. Yes. 3 of us. Luca, Milo, Maine. We're alive. We're near a river and... The signal cut out. The unit sparked. Smoke curled from its vent, acrid and black. It was dead. But it had been enough. 20 miles west, in the emergency operations tent outside Pendale, Officer Kerr leaned over the radio, pale and wide-eyed. We got them, he said. I don't know how, but we got them. Within the hour, search helicopters were airborne. The dense canopy made things difficult, but a fire tower wasn't hard to spot. But by then, the boys had left it behind. They'd seen smoke on the horizon, black, unnatural. They didn't want to be near whatever might come next. They followed the river again. 2 hours in, just as dusk fell, they heard it, the low thump of rotor blades. Flare! Milo shouted, pulling it from his pack and cracking it. The red flame cut through the gloom. A spotlight snapped on overhead. The helicopter circled. A voice boomed from a loudspeaker. Don't move. Jack laughed for the first time in 2 days. They were going home. They didn't speak much during the extraction. A harness lowered. 1 by 1, they were lifted skyward, dangling above the trees like lost cargo. The helicopter was loud, the wind sharper at that altitude, but it was the safest they'd felt in days. The doors clanged shut. Someone handed them water bottles and thermal blankets. A paramedic checked their vitals, murmuring quietly into a headset. Milo sat pressed against the wall, staring at his mud-caked sneakers. Jack's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Luca leaned his head back and closed his eyes, jaw locked, muscles twitching beneath the foil blanket. No one asked where they'd been. Not yet. When they landed at the Pendale Field Hospital, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. Their names echoed across the chaos like incantations. 3 missing boys, returned from the forest like ghosts from a bad dream. Their parents were waiting. Luca's mother sprinted into him, sobbing, clutching his face like she couldn't believe it was real. Jack's father stood stiffly behind the paramedics, eyes red but arms crossed. Milo's mother collapsed into him, holding him so tight he couldn't breathe. Then came the questions. From the cops. From the rangers. From each other. Where did you go? Why didn't you tell us? What were you thinking? They told a version of the truth. That they'd gone hiking, got turned around, lost the trail, found the tower, radioed for help. They left out the messages on the trees, the carved deer, the shack, the figures. Some things they didn't have words for, others they didn't want anyone else to carry. The next day, they were allowed to go home. The media frenzy died down quickly. 3 dumb teens getting lost didn't make for long-term headlines. But in their homes, behind drawn curtains and stern voices, the consequences came down hard. Luca was grounded indefinitely. No phone, no internet, no going out. His mother cried when she wasn't yelling. His older brother punched him in the shoulder and muttered, "You're an idiot," before hugging him for the first time in years. Jack's punishment was silent and surgical. His father cancelled the football season, removed the door from his room, and assigned a 5 a.m. chore schedule. His mother couldn't stop looking at him like he was something fragile that had nearly shattered. Milo's mother didn't yell. She just sat across the kitchen table that night, hands folded tight, and said, "You scared me in a way I can't explain." Then, with trembling lips, added, "Your father would have never forgiven me if something happened to you too." That cut deeper than any punishment. For a while, the boys didn't talk. Something unspoken stood between them, an invisible fog that clung to their memories like moss to bark. But 2 weeks later, Milo got a text. From Jack. "Tower's been decommissioned. Forestry said it was torn down 5 years ago. But we stood on it." Milo stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Still have the notebook. The drawings. Want to compare." They met behind the school that night, on the bleachers near the football field. Luca showed up, hands in pockets, eyes darker than usual. "I can't stop thinking about it," he said without looking up. "The things we saw. That deer. That shack. The writing. You don't just imagine that." Jack nodded slowly. "I checked missing persons reports. Kevin Marsden, he's still gone." Milo opened his notebook, flipped to the page with the skull-shaped rock, then the one with the radio tower, then the last one, the figures in the clearing, drawn from memory. 3 shadows. Featureless. Human-shaped. Luca's voice broke the silence. "What if we weren't supposed to leave?" Jack looked at him. "Then why did we get out?" Milo answered softly, "Because we turned back." They sat in silence after that, each staring at the notebook as if it might offer more answers. But the pages held only what they'd brought back with them. Whatever the woods were, cursed, haunted, or just deeply indifferent, they'd let them go. This time, none of the boys ever entered those woods again. Even years later, when they were old enough to laugh about it at parties, something would flicker in their eyes, something not funny at all. They'd say, "We got lost once," and people would nod. But they never told the real story, not even to each other, because some adventures weren't meant to be shared, and some forests don't want you back.